Hello, my friend. I had intended to begin the morning with a thoroughly respectable nap and had settled in quite comfortably. Unfortunately, Doris had other plans. She was approaching with what she insists upon calling the feather duster. I have never understood why humans insist upon using perfectly respectable feather toys for housekeeping. It seems a dreadful waste of good feathers. "Goodness me, Iris," she said. "Not there. That's one of my very best serving bowls." She gently lifted me down, and naturally, I selected another comfortable spot. A moment later, here came the feather duster again. "No, sweetheart, not there either." Those, it seemed, were her finest teacups. Curious, the finest things always appear to be the most comfortable. Next, I selected a lovely pink runner folded neatly upon another shelf. I thought the pink made a rather elegant contrast to my black fur. Doris looked at me, then at the shelf, and sighed. "Oh, honestly, Iris, those are my very best pieces." Which was precisely why I had chosen them. I began to suspect Doris owned an astonishing number of very best things. Eventually, I was persuaded to occupy a chair of considerably less distinction. I have since forgiven Doris. Humans have a curious habit. They save beautiful things for special occasions, china, silver. Personally, I've never understood this. Cats have never postponed a nap or refused cream because Tuesday wasn't important enough. As it happened, this story began because Doris had been saving something beautiful. Doris and I had gone to Market Square for a few provisions and a bit of fresh air. Mrs. Bramble was returning from the greengrocer, and Miss Hazelwick had just purchased a particularly excellent tin of Earl Grey and several skeins of yarn. As often happens in Crimsbury, 3 separate errands somehow became one conversation. Just as they had begun discussing the weather and the alarming price of butter, an indignant honking erupted behind us. Mr. Higgins came charging through the square in determined pursuit of Thaddeus, his goose. "Thaddeus," he cried, "come back here." Mr. Higgins had owned Thaddeus for nearly 7 years. Thaddeus, however, continued to regard the arrangement as largely theoretical. Mrs. Bramble sighed. "Oh dear, I do hope he hasn't made off with someone's unmentionables again." Miss Hazelwick narrowed her eyes as the goose flew past. "No, tea towel this time, though it does remind me of the tablecloth incident." Doris winced. Poor Mrs. Weatherby. Personally, I believe the less said about the tablecloth incident, the better. As Mr. Higgins and Thaddeus completed what appeared to be their second lap of the square, Miss Hazelwick smiled thoughtfully. "I folded my best tablecloth away years ago. I only bring it out for special occasions." Mrs. Bramble nodded. "I have beautiful candles I've been saving for years, just waiting for the right occasion." Doris smiled. "And I have a lovely hat I've only worn once because I've been waiting for the perfect day." Miss Hazelwick sighed. "Isn't it a shame that ordinary days never seem special enough?" Then her face brightened. "Why don't we create our own special occasion?" "What shall we celebrate?" Doris asked. Miss Hazelwick laughed. "The very best, of course." She straightened with mock formality. "You are all cordially invited this Thursday at 2 o'clock to a celebration of the very best. Bring your candles, Doris may wear her lovely hat, and I shall finally use my good tablecloth. Thursday afternoon arrived, and Doris climbed the stairs and carefully opened the old hat box. She smiled, then she didn't. It appeared time had not been especially kind. The ribbon had faded, the brim had lost its shape, and it seemed that several generations of moths had made a meal of it. The magnificent feathers now drooped over one side like a particularly discouraged fern. Poor Doris sat on the edge of the bed. "What will they think?" she whispered. Humans spend an astonishing amount of time worrying about this question, usually unnecessarily. Just then, there came a knock at the door. Silas had arrived with a small delivery. Doris opened the door, and Silas paused for the tiniest moment as he noticed the hat. "My," he said politely. "That is a remarkably memorable hat." Doris sighed. "It's dreadful." "No," said Silas quickly. "Only rather more enthusiastic than hats usually are." Mildred came in and caught Silas's eye. The two of them became intensely interested in not laughing. I have observed that humans attempting not to laugh are almost always considerably funnier than humans who simply do. Then Silas smiled warmly. "I think your friends will see Doris long before they notice the hat." Doris smiled. I believe those were precisely the words she needed. Doris picked up her basket. I naturally followed. She looked down at me and sighed. "Very well. You may come, but you are not to sit on anyone's good china." Mrs. Hazelwick welcomed us into her lovely cottage. The fire crackled and the kettle sang softly. Everything appeared perfectly lovely. Almost. I couldn't help noticing that Mrs. Hazelwick seemed oddly preoccupied with arranging the flower vase and pastry dishes on the table. Meanwhile, Mrs. Bramble was giving her beautiful candles rather more attention than candles usually require. Something, I suspected, was amiss. That was when both ladies noticed Doris's hat. They hid their surprise politely, and Doris put on a brave front as though she was proud to be wearing it. The ladies settled in. Tea was poured. Cake was served, conversation flowed, and for several blissful minutes, everything proceeded exactly as planned. Until one of Mrs. Bramble's lovely candles began leaning, ever so slightly to the left. She quietly stood, straightened it and sat down. A few moments later it leaned again. No one mentioned it. Then the others began leaning, bending and curling into alarming shapes. Everyone pretended not to notice. As Doris reached for the teapot, a tiny tuft drifted quietly from the great feather upon her hat. It floated gently through an afternoon sunlight beam, twirled once, and landed neatly in Mrs. Hazelwick's teacup. Mrs. Hazelwick blinked. She looked into her cup, then looked at Doris. Doris followed her gaze. A long silence settled over the room. Finally Doris smiled rather sheepishly. "It appears my hat has seasoned your tea." For one heroic moment, everyone tried to remain perfectly dignified. Then Mrs. Hazelwick laughed. Mrs. Bramble laughed. Doris laughed hardest of all. Still laughing, Mrs. Hazelwick reached to slide the flower vase aside and move the dishes of pastries. There, covering nearly the entire table, was the most wonderfully moth-eaten tablecloth I had ever seen. Tiny little holes, big holes, Clearly a family of moths had been feasting on it for quite some time. Mrs. Hazelwick sighed. I've been hiding it behind those flowers for the last 20 minutes. Mrs. Bramble smiled. I've been pretending not to notice my candles. One of the candles chose that precise moment to bend almost double and plop in a rather undignified manner squarely in the middle of a plate of pastries. The three ladies looked at one another, then burst into another fit of laughter, the sort that leaves one's cheeks sore, the sort one remembers years later. It occurred to me that no one spoke very much about the tablecloth after that, candles, or even Doris's hat. The conversation wandered from old stories to new ones, from laughter to comfortable silence, and by the time the afternoon faded into evening, the things everyone had been saving had quietly become ordinary. The afternoon itself, however, had become rather extraordinary. If you enjoyed spending the afternoon with us in Crimsbury, I do hope you'll visit again soon. And should you wish to make finding your way back a little easier, you might consider subscribing or a small tap upon the like button. Personally, I have never operated one, but humans seem very fond of them. Until next time, do take care on the foggy roads home. I'll save you a cozy place by the fire.